Hi Mark, and so I've known you a few years, but a lot of people don't know you and don't really know much about your background. So can you tell us a little bit about where you've been, what you've done, some highlights of time at Tintri?
Sure. So I joined Tintri back in August 2011. My role is the SE manager for Europe, Middle East and Africa. So I run the entire technical organisation. But prior to Tintri, I was actually at a variety of networking vendors for 20 years. But even before that, I actually got into storage and virtualisation through my days back in the good old days of the IBM mainframe.
Well, I've been there myself, so back in the 80s it was quite interesting, wasn't it?
It's amazing how many people today don't realise how many of the constructs that they play around with existed, 3-4 decades ago. So
things like
I grew up.
Memory management,
indeed,
disk management, sharing of I/O. There's a lot of things that just move forward, haven't they, into the new technology we use today, like VMware.
Indeed. Yeah.
So what excites you?
What excites me about Tintri specifically is we've built a new class of storage platform designed specifically for virtual machines, but only for virtual machines. So we can very granularly understand the I/O traffic patterns for each and every virtual machine that runs on a Tintri device. So we are a VM-aware storage platform. Very unique. How
did that come about, though? So who thought, let's do it differently?
It's a great question, actually. So the company was founded by Dr. Kieran Harty. Kieran was the man that ran engineering for VMware from pre-product, so the whole concept of server virtualization, etc., vCenter, all these tools that we know and love, they were actually designed by the engineering team that reported directly to Kieran. And as I'm sure you're aware, virtualization does a pretty good job, or certainly the hypervisor does a good job of managing resources like compute resources, CPU, memory. It does a pretty good job of actually providing and controlling access into the network environment. But what it doesn't do is actually manage the storage particularly well. So you have an abstraction layer called a data store. So from a VM perspective, the VM sees the data store. From a storage perspective, the storage sees the data store, but the VM doesn't see the back-end storage, and the back-end storage doesn't understand that data that lives on it has any relationship with a virtual machine. So Kieran actually left to set up Tintri to solve that specific issue. So essentially every Tintri appliance you can think of as being a data store. Yeah. So it provides that very controlled linkage between the two environments.
Yeah, so it's a different approach. And I'm sure you've come up against problems with the traditionalists with their SAN infrastructure. This is the way we've always done it, so we should continue to do it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the biggest problem is that when you suddenly run a whole bunch of virtual machines on a piece of server hardware, the I/O patterns change dramatically compared to how an individual application would send its I/O, if you will. So that blending effect from the hypervisor layer, bringing all those I/Os together that then get shipped off to the storage, it actually is quite burdensome for the storage array itself. So how do we suddenly provide enough performance to hand a completely randomized set of I/Os? And the traditional approach has actually been to over-provision storage or short stroking, etc., to get enough performance out of spinning disks to actually handle the randomized I/O. So there needs to be a better way of doing this, and that's what we've come up with.
Oh, that's good. Well, thanks ever so much, Mark. We're going to do a series of small videos going into specific areas that customers have asked us, and also that customers ask you over the period of time. Hopefully it'll be quite important. So we'll kick off with those next.
Great.
Thank you.